What is up, guys? Welcome back to CageChat MMA. We are here for the UFC 263 live preview. Of course, we've got an absolute stacked card tonight. 2 rematches and Nate Diaz fighting tonight, of course, with Leon Edwards. So make sure to hit that subscribe button. Make sure to go check us out on social media, CageChat MMA, on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, of course. Go follow the socials and give them a little love as well as we build up to a fantastic night of fight. And obviously, Israel Adesanya returns after that attempt to become champ, moving up to 205 against Jan Blachowicz. Suffered his first professional MMA loss, of course, in what was a very respectable fashion. He went up there, looked good for 3 rounds, and then obviously Jan Blachowicz, with that size differential that he carries, he was able to get the takedowns in round 4 and 5 and steal the rounds. So it was a phenomenal performance for Jan Blachowicz, and there was a reason. It showed a reason why there's a weight class. It showed why Israel is a 185er at the moment. If he wants to go up to 205, he's probably going to take and do something like John Jones has done, take a year out, bulk up, and then retry again. And I think he will try again. Maybe not while Jan's champion. Maybe there needs to be a change of hands in the title at 205 before he gets another attempt to challenge the 205. But tonight he returns to 185, returns back down to middleweight, and has a former opponent in Marvin Vettori. Obviously, this one is the closest fight that he's had at middleweight, and probably in his UFC career. This one was a split decision 3 years ago, in the same state, in the same arena, of course, at Glendale, Arizona. And it went to a split decision. Adesanya got the rubber green on that one, rightfully so, I believe. No, I think he won round 1 and 2. But Vettori has come back with a vengeance, and he's putting a good win streak together. Obviously, most recently against Kevin Holland and Jack Manson, probably his most impressive wins up to date, especially that Jack Manson simply to take it on short notice and dominated the fight for 5 rounds. Whereas Kevin Holland had just lost to Derek Brunson, came on late notice to save the fight, and we saw the same sort of blueprint from Marvin Vettori that Derek Brunson had given him. We are live, of course. Israel, the main card starts at 3 AM, so probably Israel comes out after the 2 5-rounders prior to him, probably about 5 AM British time, maybe 5:30 British time, depending on how results go. But yes, he's coming back for a vengeance. He's looking to take that title away from Adesanya, and maybe it's interesting to see how Adesanya bounces back from that loss. I think he only took 1 or 2 losses at the most in kickboxing. He's very, very unanimously a winner at heart. And he's looked pretty pissed off recently, hasn't he, coming into this? Like he's got to prove the point, like he wants to, prove that he is the king of the 185ers. And I think he's got the right opponent to do it. Obviously, a lot of people thought he'd be having Robert Whittaker next, but obviously Whittaker wanted a little more time out, which was right for, he's respected to do so. Obviously, Paulo Costa's coming off that loss. He needs to fight again. He was supposed to fight, obviously, Jared Cannonier. That fight's fallen through. So it's interesting to see where he goes from here. But obviously, Adesanya tonight, Marvin Vettori, again, these two know each other. They've gone back and forth this past week or two, especially with starting with that little news conference video that we had on the broadcast last week, and then obviously the press conference this week, etc. They've really, put it up a notch in the heat, you could say. And obviously, I am an Adesanya fan, so I am backing him, but not to doubt him, but the main concern is how he bounces back from this loss. I think it's different just because of the fact that we have got a more even playing field. Obviously, 183 and 184 was the weigh-in yesterday, 0.5 that is, and they're going to be a lot closer tonight, I think. Obviously, Vettori is going to probably be 195 to 200, and Adesanya's going to be around 190 to 195 as well, after rehydration. So obviously, I'd imagine Jan was about 215, 220, maybe 225 at the maximum after that weigh-in at 259. So hopefully, Vettori, with the less of the advantage that Vettori has in weight, hopefully if the fight does go to the ground, especially within the centre of the cage, Adesanya can do a little bit more to get up, especially in those later rounds, those championship rounds. Hopefully he can use his skill set to get back onto the feet. He is very good at stuffing takedowns, albeit 205 is the outlier, but again, the weight difference between the two fighters probably is the biggest sort of factor to that, and the fact that they'd already been gone 15 hard minutes as well. Obviously fans are back, so it's going to be interesting how Adesanya and Vettori bounce off the fans. It seems like there's a very pro Adesanya audience that we've got tonight. We've got a very pro Diaz audience as well. It seems like Brandon Moreno's got the audience on his side for this fight, of course. Obviously, Arizona's not too far from Mexico, of course, so it's a little easier for them to get fans to Arizona from Mexico than it is, say, for Brazil or the UK or New Zealand and Nigeria for Edwards, Adesanya and Figueiredo, of course. But it's a great main event and it's a great fight. Obviously, Whittaker, we want to see that rematch with Adesanya where he took the belt, where he lost the belt, of course, in Australia. And Adesanya is doing what Kamaru Usman has done, is going through his opponents for a second time. That amount of times passed, etc. And he's lapping the field. Obviously, you've got the likes of Jared Cannonier, Jack Hermansson, Darren Till on the wings. But every time they get that spot to take the number one contendership, they fall. They can't make the walk to the octagon. Obviously, Darren Till broke his collarbone, and Paulo Costa's taken out this fight due to the payment issues that he feels he's owed a bigger wage packet, which obviously Dana White did refute and respond to. But tonight, to focus on it, let's have a look at the tail of the tape, of course. 20-1, of course, that first professional loss. 17-4-1. 6-4 versus 6. Obviously, both came in under that 185-pound limit yesterday. 6-inch reach advantage there for Adesanya on the striking, and also a 3.5-inch reach advantage in the legs as well. So Adesanya comes into this, the bigger guy. I think this is probably the first fight, maybe within at least since Robert Whittaker, where you say he's actually fighting someone, who's rightfully in his weight class. You could say, I think Jan and Paulo Costa and Yoel Romero could, and maybe should all be 205. There's obviously Romero went over the Bellator to compete in the light heavyweight Grand Prix, although was unable to make the walk, of course, with some medical issues. So he is fighting a rightful 185 there, and I think that's going to put him in good favour, in good stead tonight. I think the fact that these two have gone to war before, it looks like, Vettori's maybe got into his own head at the moment. I think Adesanya's got under his skin, and Adesanya's just playing that ball game at the moment. And we could see a vintage performance like we did against Paulo Costa, like we did against Robert Whittaker. I think Adesanya's going to want to come out and prove the point, and we might see a finish tonight. I don't know if this goes with all 5 rounds. Obviously, Whittaker came out and said you won't need the judges, and Chael Sonnen, fantastic creator when it comes to content, was saying, it's boring when he come out and say I'm going to feature in the first round, the second round, etc. He just said, you don't need the judges for this one. I think we're right. I think he's right. I think we're in for a cracking main event. I don't think we're going to see all 25 minutes, although on the said that we saw the war with Kelvin Gastelum, so Adesanya, has the capabilities of going to war. And, Vettori has the heat on that, and obviously he's chasing that goal of being the first Italian UFC champion, so maybe there could be some heart coming into the factor tonight, and neither one wanted to back down. If it does go to 5 rounds, maybe Vettori comes out more the victor, you could say. Maybe we've seen him get a couple of takedowns, especially in that 3rd and 4th and final round. If he's controlling the fight on the ground and taking the judges' scorecards into it and taking the points, maybe you could see and new. But I do think we see and still, and I am going through an Israel Adesanya finish within 3 rounds. I think he's going to come out slowly for the first, get into it in the second, and then put Vettori away in the third. And let's have a look at the middleweight rankings. Of course, Robert Whittaker still that number 1 contender, rightfully so. I'd like to see him against Luke Rockhold personally, if Luke Rockhold wants to come back. But Bisping did say on BT yesterday that Rockhold is in fact looking at Jack Hermansson as his return fight. But I think Robert Whittaker would be a good one, 2 former champions. Rockhold wins, he's the number 1 contender, and you can build Adesanya Rockhold, which is a fight that Rockhold says he can win. So I think that makes sense. Obviously, you've got Cannonier versus Gastelum. If Gastelum wins against Cannonier, you could easily book that rematch with Adesanya, but I do think he's a fight away from that, especially having a loss to Robert Whittaker. Derek Brunson's still in the mix. He's got to fight Darren Till. I think that's been pushed to September, as the UFC hope to book it in London, which makes sense. And of course, you've got Jack Hermansson coming off a win too against Edmund Shabazin, of course, 2-3 weeks ago now. So it's a good division, it's a cracking division. You know, Adesanya's beaten Whittaker, he's beaten Costa, he's beaten Brunson, he's beaten Vettori, albeit a split decision. He might get a more unanimous victory tonight to put that rivalry in the mud. So it's only really Cannonier and Uriah Hall, and obviously Darren Till and Jack Manson. But again, Darren Till, Manson, Cannonier, they've had opportunities to take that number one spot and fallen short when it mattered most. So yes. Let us know your predictions in the comments down below as well. Make sure to just drop this video a like, and let's get into the co-main event. Obviously we've got Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno, a rematch everyone wants to see and a rematch everyone's buzzing for. If you remember, 4 years ago, Dana White was looking to cut the flyweight division, and now it's absolutely thriving. We've got some superstars in there. You've got Askarov, obviously you've still got Joseph Benavidez, you've got Deiveson, Figueiredo champion, and of course Brandon Moreno, who tonight, as Dana White said in the press conference last night, he becomes champion tonight. He becomes an absolute superstar in Mexico, and he's someone who's impossible to like, Brandon Moreno. So is Deiveson and Figueiredo. Both of them seem, at least on the outside, these quite nice, quite humble guys. But there's a killer instinct in there with them, and they both brought out in that fight back at UFC 236. Obviously, both of them having very quick turnarounds at UFC 235 also. And they put us and gave us probably maybe fight of the year, maybe only second to Zhang Weili and Yoni and Jacek last year, of course. It was a majority draw. Obviously, Figueiredo did have a point deduction, and obviously he wasn't 100% going into that fight. I think he had food poisoning on the night before, was in hospital after the weigh-ins. Obviously, yesterday the weigh-ins was a bit problematic, you could say, for Figueiredo as well. He came in with a minute or two left on the clock for the official weigh-ins, came in at 125, and if you watched the embedded, I think it was episode 5 or episode 6 after the weigh-ins, he almost broke down in tears after and having made weight. Obviously he had question marks about making weight the first time he fought for the title against Benavidez. He missed weight, so that was none of the void. Obviously they had the rematch, and he convincingly won that, became champion, went 5 rounds with Moreno, kept his championship via decision. He was a minute or two from losing it on the scales. Fortunately not, and we do get this cracking fight. Now, if Figueiredo is 100%, again, it all depends on what happened yesterday. If he's taken a little while to rehydrate, it depends on how, he probably did have a very heavy weight cut. So hopefully it's not left him in too much of the bad stead for tonight. But if it has, Brandon Moreno is going to be there, ready to capitalise. He's a solid competitor, a solid challenger, as we saw in the first fight. And to have a quick look at the tape, of course, 21-1 up against 18-2. Brandon Moreno having a 2-inch reach advantage. Both of them came in at 125. Moreno also has the striking advantage with a 2-inch reach advantage, and also 38 leg reach apiece, so they are equal there. And they were very equal on the night back in the UFC 235. I do think this is the one that probably goes the distance, although, having said that, I could equally see both of them get a finish on the night. Obviously, Brandon Moreno in that final round, back on 236, obviously had an issue with his arm going into that latter round. He seems to have thought he recovered from that. There was rumours that it was a broken arm or something like that in the fight, but there's no question marks, there's no reasons to be concerned that Brandon Moreno going into tonight's fight. Obviously there's 5-6 months that have passed as well. He's also had a full camp. He's moved to Vegas. I know for this camp, I don't know if he was in Vegas the last camp, but he's been using the UFC PI. He's been down at Extreme Couture, I believe. So he's put in the work for this camp, and it'd be nice to see him become champion, to be honest. But again, I like Figueiredo. I like what Figueiredo brings. I think he's got this ice cold. He's got this coldness running through his veins. He's got this killer instinct, and it's good for the 125-pound division. Obviously, Demetrius Johnson is one of the greatest of all time, but he was someone who was very quiet and very humble. He just got on with his work. He wasn't someone you would see in the headlines too often unless he was fighting. And obviously, he'd always be on the red corner, but he wasn't someone you would put on a main event. It was always someone who would be co-main eventing the majority of the time. And Cejudo was a little bit different. He saved the division. He was the messenger, of course, and kept the flyweight division open, and then obviously went straight up to bantamweight division to a point where we didn't have a champion for 10-11 months until we had Figueiredo and Benavidez. Obviously that had to get replayed, and now we have got a champion who could really bring something special to this division. Obviously we've got a couple challengers, as I mentioned, Askarov. You got Manel Cape from Rising, needs to get a couple wins, but again, he looks solid. You got Kai Kara France in that division. It's an absolutely stacked division. Not quite on the levels of the bantamweights, the lightweights, and the featherweights, but it's stronger than heavyweight is right now. It's stronger potentially than what light heavyweight is right now. That's quite a bold statement. You might disagree with that one, but you got Alex Perez, you got Pantoja, you got Brandon Moreno. So you got some great names in there. David Devilrat got a very good win a couple of weeks ago. So it's a good solid division. And tonight if Moreno gets the win, you could easily see a third one to this, dependent on the outcome of that fight. I think these two are definitely going to meet along the line again, but Askar definitely deserves a shot should Figueiredo get a win tonight. It might be another draw again. That's going to be very unlikely, but it's not impossible, which it would set up a trilogy, you could say. But yeah, this fight is probably the one that's the most anticipated and maybe the one that's closest to call. And I think this one's probably got the tightest betting odds, I'd say. I haven't checked the betting odds, but if I was to have to guess which fight was the closest tonight, I'd say this is the one that it is. And it could be very much fight of the night if they put anything on similar to the one we saw on 256. They're going to be walking away with 30k each, and one of them wrapped gold around their waist and walking out as the 125-pound champion. And the more I think about it, I'd like to see Moreno win. He came across very well on Embedded. He seems very humble. He seems quite, with all due respect, a little bit nerdish with his collectors thing, which I love. I absolutely love all that stuff. I think that's fantastic for him. It's nice to see the human side. I think there's less so now, but there was a stigma, and that all MMA guys are just not great people, let's say, But you see, like Dominic Reyes, Adesanya, the middleweight champion, you're getting to see these more not introverted, but these more calm and collected and composed individuals, rather than a roided up meathead, you could say. But yeah, I'm buzzing for this one, and of course I'm buzzing to see Leon Edwards back against Nate Diaz. Now Nate Diaz came out with a very bold statement Thursday evening, at a press conference, saying that Leon Edwards is doing what GSP has done or had did, and not getting the love for it. And I thought that was a very that was a brilliant statement for Diaz to make. It puts Leon Edwards over. It almost gives him a way out should he lose tonight. Nate Diaz, he's he's doing what GSP's done. He's very good. He's a tough warrior, he's a competitor, and I think we've got to respect Nate Diaz for taking this fight. He didn't have to take this fight. There's money fights out there for him. There's, he could wait a month to see what happens between McGregor and Poirier, and he could take either one of those matches. Obviously, he's not, or less willing to go down to 165 after teasing us about a return to 165 at the start of the year. This fight was made very quickly, wasn't it? Obviously, Leon Edwards made that return back in March against Bilal Muhammad, and unfortunately there was the eye poke incident which made it a no contest. But both of them have been out 2 years apart from that 6-7 minutes that we saw from Leon Edwards. Obviously Nate Diaz is coming off of that loss against Jorge Masvidal, which was a 15-20 minute beatdown, albeit it was finished or stopped by the doctors rather than the referee or a knockout, etc. It was the doctors in New York that stopped that fight for us, unfortunately. So yeah, obviously Nate doesn't have to choose Leon Edwards, but he chose him. I think he has the most respect for him outside Masvidal and probably Usman. I don't think it'd give Colby the light of day for that fight. He might do, but no, I don't. I doubt that Nate Diaz has much respect for him just because of the gimmick and etc. Nate Diaz is a real one, and Leon Edwards deserves this fight. He's putting a lot of work. He's on an 8-fight win streak, 9 fights without a loss. That last loss obviously being to Kamaru Usman, the champ. We need to see that fight being remade, but. Nate Diaz could really throw a spanner in the works. Obviously, Leon Edwards should win this fight. He's, a very talented individual. He's number 3 for a reason. Nate Diaz has come towards the end of his career. He's 36 years of age. But, just like Justin Gaethje last year, Tony Thurgood was meant to win that fight and go on to face Khabib. But, the MMA gods just don't give us that option, do they? And tonight could be one of those nights where UK fans are probably crying because Nate Diaz has beat Leon Edwards. This one is 5 rounds. The first time we've had this was supposed to be the first co-main event with 5 rounds or a non-title bout. But obviously it's still 5 rounds, but the third fight on the card, of course. in terms of the main card at least. But, RDA, Gunnar Nelson, Donald Cerrone, Leon Edwards was put on some fantastic wins. It's a shame about the Belal Muhammad fight. It's a shame about all of these previous, 5 supposed fights. 3 against Khamzat Chimaev, Tyron Woodley, of course, and he was supposed to fight Nate Diaz last month as well, of course, and that got pushed back even further. So he must be absolutely buzzing to step into the cage. And, it's about time we get to see Leon Edwards get another win, and I hope he does. But again, let's have a quick look at the tape. Of course, here we are, 18-3, 21-12, 6-0 versus 6-1. Both came in at 170. I think Edwards at 170.5, making the most of that extra pound, or half a pound in this case. But 76-inch reach for Diaz, 2 inches advantage for him over Edwards. But Edwards does have a vastly advantage in the leg reach, 43-38, so an extra 5 inches there for the Birmingham fighter, of course. And, that's probably going to be where he wins his fight. He can be able to keep that little bit of extra distance using the leg reach. It's crazy that, Diaz has the same leg reach as the 2 flyweights fighting tonight. He's got that abnormally long torso, hasn't he? And, he's extremely tough. And this is going to be a solid fight, and I'm excited to see what Nate Diaz brings tonight. As I mentioned, he didn't have to take this fight. He could fight Masvidal, could fight Conor in December or January, etc. Depending on what happens with Conor. He could fight Poirier. There's so many fights out for him. He could have stayed retired, of course. Well, I say retired. He said he'd never retire, but he didn't have to fight it this year. I did say a tweet, I can't remember who it was. It's kind of ironic that once marijuana got taken out of the USADA banned substances, that both Diaz brothers are interested to fight this year, and rightfully so. It's unfortunate we haven't seen Nick Diaz in 5 years. Hopefully we'll see him in 2021, and I hope we see more of Nate Diaz more regularly. He beat Anthony Pettis, obviously set up the BMF fight with Jorge, and then took a 2-year absence. And we need these sort of characters. We need our Conors, our Jorge Masvidals. We need the Diaz brothers in here at the moment. John Jones obviously not fighting at the moment, but hopefully he'll be back soon in 2021, the late end of 2021 or 2022. Hope we can get that heavyweight title with Francis Ngannou sorted. But to focus on tonight, I have to back Leon Edwards, but yeah, I do have a strange feeling that the MMA gods are going to take this one away from us, take the title opportunity away from us when he should have had it probably 12 months ago, 18 months ago, you could say. And then it sets up, potentially Diaz Masvidal 2 or Diaz Usman, which again, Usman at the moment, you'd heavily favour Usman to beat Nate Diaz right now. But again, it's a fight that makes paper, it makes, it sells a lot of seats and sells a lot of pay-per-views, and would make sense on that point of view. But for Leon Edwards, he has to get that win tonight, get on the mic, call out Kamaru Usman, and take that spot from Colby Compton, because Colby Compton looks like he's taking it right now. And in all fairness, Colby and Usman was one of the greatest fights that I've seen back at 246. It was 245 even. But he just needs to win and do something similar to what Diaz done when he called out Conor McGregor. Just get on the mic, impress. Again, to reference Shell, I've been watching a lot of the content because he's absolutely fantastic. There's 3 stages to the fight. There's the press conference and the build up to the fight. There's the fight itself, and then there's the post fight call out and time on the mic. And if he can get 2 out of those 3 tonight, perfect. He's done one of them in terms of the build up, and he's just got to make that walk, get the win, and finish the 3rd stanza with a fantastic call out to make people root for him for the next title opportunity over Colby Compton. And of course, to talk about the rest of the main card and the card as a whole, Belal Muhammad is returning tonight. Of course, there was a lot of talk about Edwards and Belal Muhammad rematching, but both of them got Golden Legends instead. Belal Muhammad has got Damian Maia, again a favourable matchup for him in terms of age, maybe not so in experience, and it's going to be interesting to see how we see a 43-year-old Damian Maia is coming off the back of that Gilbert Burns knockout. And that loss at the end of 2020, the final event that we had before the hiatus of the MMA and sport as a whole. But Belal Muhammad gets one tonight. It's a top 7, top 8 guy in the welterweight division. Belal Muhammad is, he's on the come up there, but he showed he was maybe a level below Leon Edwards in the last fight. Paul Craig fights Jamal Hill, of course, as well. This fight got a little bit spicy. when you saw the Embedded series, I think it was the first episode, that both of them met in the hotel, had a bit of a back and forth, just building up the fight, anticipating the fight, making it even more exciting. But Paul Craig, obviously, being from the UK, we've got to back Paul Craig, beat Shogun Rua in very dominant fashion in his last performance, has looked great as well in the past year or two, and it's going to be interesting to see how he does against Hill. Of course, we've got Brad Riddell versus Drew Dober as the featured bout on the prelims. Eric Anders versus Darren Stewart. We're getting part 2 of this. This one is at light heavyweight, and again, to reference the BT weigh-in show, which was fantastic. Nick Pete was saying the reason why this is a light heavyweight because we still don't know what's going on in the world with catering, etc. And Darren Stewart didn't want to come out to Vegas and not be able to get the right assistance and the right needs to make 185. So this is the right why it's at 205. Sorry, it's gonna be interesting to see how that extra 15-20 pounds does for both fighters. Obviously, Anders had a very good first round before that illegal knee got the fight stopped to a no contest. We've got Joanne Cordova, of course, against Lauren Murphy. This will probably and most likely be for the number 1 contender. About to face Valentina Shevchenko next. Obviously, Joanne Cordova this time last year was supposed to fight Valentina, of course, but Shevchenko was injured. Obviously, Cordova opted to stay fighting and thought Jennifer Maia lost that fight. And obviously, Jennifer Maia went on to challenge Valentina Shevchenko. But obviously, Lauren Murphy, she has the most wins in the flyweight division at the moment. She's on the biggest and longest streak, so a win for her tonight again would certainly book up a spot in a fight with Valentina. Of course, Valentina's absolutely smashing at the moment. She dominated Andrade, she's beaten Chikagan, she's beaten Maia, she's beaten Jessica Rai. So there's only 3 competitors: Lauren Murphy, Calvillo, and Joanne Cordwood, who's next tonight, and one of these two will certainly punch their ticket to fight the flyweight champion next, which I don't know if that's exciting or absolutely terrifying for either competitor tonight. We've got Hakeem Dawodu versus Movsar Evloev. We've got Pani Kianzad versus Alexis Davis, and we've got Matt Fredo versus Terence Mckinney. Terence Mckinney making his UFC debut tonight. Stephen Peterson against Chase Hooper, the MMA kid, son of Ben Askren, of course. Thoresihan versus Luigi Benjamini, Carlos Felipe versus Jake Collier, and that rounds out our card. It's a fantastic 14 fight card. It's going to be a long night for us UK and European fans, of course, with 3 25-minute fights. Hopefully, not all of them go to distance. Hopefully, we can get 2 out of 3 go to distance with Edwards, Diaz, and Figueiredo and Moreno. And I'm hoping to see a shorter night for Adesanya and Vettori, with Adesanya, of course, coming out the champion. But yes, I'm going to leave it there, guys. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Make sure to give this video a like, etc. Share it on Twitter. Make sure to go follow us on social media at CageChat MMA on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And I'll see you guys on Monday for the review.